The night air above Blackwater Bay still shimmered with ghost-green afterglow, a malignant aurora that refused to fade even hours after the last of the chain fires sputtered out along the water. Across the charred decks of half-sunken galleys, embers hissed when the tide lapped over them, and wisps of sour smoke curled upward to stain the moon. From the highest terrace of Maegor's Holdfast, the stench reached King Joffrey Baratheon brine, burning pitch, and the cloying, almost sweet odor of cooked meat. His stomach lurched, but stubborn pride anchored him to the balustrade, shoulders squared in crimson velvet despite the distant screams echoing from the lower city. No one dared suggest he withdraw. Ser Osmond Kettleblack loomed a respectful half-pace behind, gauntlet hands canted toward sword and dagger, yet even he knew better than to press the king when Joffrey's pulse hammered with the thrill of victory. Victory. The word tasted exquisite. Stannis was broken, his ships crackling ruins, and all of Westeros would know that the boy who sat the Iron Throne had bathed his enemies in wildfire. The realm would kneel, and all the mocking whispers about child kings and incest would shrivel like the fleet aflame below. A sudden roar, part cheers, part terror, rose from the Mud Gate quarter. Green light blossomed afresh where a half-drowned hulk drifted against the stone seawall. The detonation thundered through the night, loose shards of wildfire erupting skyward like vengeful spirits. One shard, small as a candle flame yet bright as a star, streaked across the sky trailing emerald sparks. It was beautiful, Joffrey thought, almost like some signal from the gods affirming his right to rule. Beautiful until it curved, sputtering, and descended not toward the bay but toward the terrace. There was scarcely time to shout. The comet of glass and hellfire shattered against the balustrade at Joffrey's very feet. A sapling-thin scream tore from Ser Osmond's throat. Sapphire shards and sticky green fluid sprayed outward in an instant, followed by the shriek of wildfire igniting upon flesh, stone, and velvet. Pain was a concept the young king had encountered only in passing. Skinned knees in the practice yard, girl-made claws when his temper flared. But this was something fouler, primal. Flames blossomed across his chest, leapt up his neck with hungering fingers, and rushed the delicate planes of his face. It felt as though some colossal forge bellows had been shoved into his mouth and nostrils, pumping molten iron into his lungs. Joffrey's vision vanished behind a curtain of liquid jade. He staggered backward, slamming into Osmond, whose own surcoat caught. Somewhere a maester had once told him wildfire loved flesh most of all. Hands pawed at him, gloved, armored, useless. Someone doused him in river water hauled from the cistern, but the fire only flared brighter. The next bucket was wine. Purple smoke rose with a hiss. Joffrey tasted blood and salt and his own blistering lips as servants dragged him from the terrace, cloaks beating at flames that would not be tamed. He did not faint. That was for the weak, the cowardly. Yet the world narrowed to ragged breaths and the wet crackle of burning flesh. Each inhalation slashed across his throat. Somewhere far below, distant as a dream, men kept cheering for their king. He awoke days later, though to Joffrey it felt like a single long scream broken by blackness, in the Queen's ballroom, repurposed hastily into a sick room. Heavy curtains blocked the windows to spare him the sun. A haze of incense fought the scent of scorched meat. The first thing he saw was his mother, bowed like a supplicant beside the bed, her fair hair draped forward to hide her tears. The second was the bandage that covered half his face, wrapped from brow to jaw, stained the color of old copper. Only one eye was left uncovered, and in its reflection upon a polished silver plate meant to serve as a looking-glass he saw something that could not be a king. A raw welt of marbled red and black started at his temple and dragged downward, warping the line of his cheek. Swathes of skin glistened wetly. Tufts of blonde hair were gone entirely on that side, replaced by weeping blisters. His lower lip had split and swollen, the corner oozing. Beneath the ruin lay the faint shape of teeth where flesh had burned clear through. The sight was so monstrous that, for a beat, Joffrey believed this another fever-poisoned vision. Then the pain caught up to him and he knew consciousness. He tried to speak. The sound he produced was a croak, thick as congealed grease. Queen Cersei lifted her head at once, smoothing her son's unburned hair. "Rest, my sweet boy," she whispered. "Don't waste strength." Joffrey wanted to ask after his face, after the realm, after the fools who had let Wildfire touch their king. He wanted to demand Lord Tywin's presence and Tyrion's and Marjorie's, to see them grovel while he dispensed justice. Instead he managed only water, and the word rent his throat wide open inside. Cersei brought a goblet to his lips. Even the trickle of tepid water felt like shards of ice and glass, but he swallowed and forced himself to take more. Each gulp was a memory of flame. "This will heal," Cersei lied, her voice wobbling. "Grand Maester Pycelle says the scarring will soften in time." One eye narrowed with loathing. The other eye remained sealed in dried pitch beneath its bandage. Yet Joffrey could already feel how it bulged, how lids clung and stuck. He doubted it would ever open again. A year's worth of punishments he had reserved for the realm crowded to mind. Pycelle, Kettle Black, the pyromancers, Tyrion most of all. Someone would pay, and payment would take flesh. A footstep scuffed at the doorway. Ser Boros Blunt appeared, helm tucked beneath one arm, pink jowls trembling. "Your Grace," he began. "Lord Tywin has taken the hand's chair. The Master of Coin sends wine and a cask of Myrish essence to ease your—" Joffrey's snarl tore free before he could stop it. The sound scraped like sandpaper soaked in honey. Cersei flinched. Boros paled. "Leave us," the Queen commanded, gentle as a dirk between ribs. "The king needs quiet." When the Kingsguard had retreated, Joffrey whispered, "Bring me a mirror." "Not yet." Cersei dabbed at his brow with a cloth steeped in milk of the poppy. "Sleep again. Vengeance can wait until you're strong." "I am strong." The slur of his swollen lip made the word a hiss. "I am the king. They'll love me more for suffering." Cersei blinked. "They'll love you, yes," she agreed at last, "and fear you. The realm must see that even Wildfire cannot fell a lion of House Lannister." But behind her eyes smoldered a doubt she could not hide. Joffrey felt its heat more keenly than any flame. 3 days later, when the poppy drafts lessened, he ordered Ser Island Payne to bring him a mirror. The mute headsman obliged without question, setting a polished steel disc upon the bedclothes. Joffrey dismissed the guards, sent servants scurrying, and with trembling fingers unwrapped the linen that veiled the ruined half of his face. The king in the mirror was not golden or comely. He was a patchwork of nightmares. Gnarled flesh puckered from brow to cheek like melted candle wax. A web of purplish veins radiated beneath the surface. His left eye, what remained of it, glittered milky green, blind and unblinking. Where his ear had been, a ragged flap clung to skull like burnt parchment. His lips, once thin and cruelly handsome, now drooped at one corner, exposing a line of teeth. He stared so long he forgot to breathe. When finally he tore his gaze away, sweat ran cold down his good cheek. They would pity him. They would mock him. The whispers would grow, Mad King, Cursed King, Demon King. Joffrey Baratheon had always drawn power from his beauty. Golden curls, aquiline nose, a smile that could charm ladies or terrify small folk. Now half his face belonged to some creature summoned from old Valyrian legend. Yet power did not vanish. It changed shape. The first thing he did was have Ser Island drag a servant from the corridor, a stable boy who smelled of horses and fear. Joffrey commanded the lad to look upon him. The boy's eyes widened. He gasped, stumbled, sank to knees that knocked together. Without preamble, Joffrey had Ser Island remove the boy's tongue. Blood sprayed across silken sheets. The scream rattled the ballroom chandeliers, and guards burst in too late to matter. "From this day," Joffrey rasped, voice rough as river stones, "anyone who looks upon their king with anything but awe loses a piece of themselves." No one dared argue. Fear, he realized, could be sculpted from ugliness as surely as admiration from beauty. He would carve the realm to his new shape. The small council convened in King's Tower 2 days later. Lord Tywin sat the hand's seat, broad shoulders encased in gleaming plate chased with gold. Beside him stood Tyrion, nose still bandaged from a sword stroke on the Blackwater. eyes bright with unreadable amusement. Grand Maester Pycelle smelled of must and camphor. Lord Varys perfumed the room with lilac. Peter Baelish hovered like a quaint shadow. Lady Olenna Tyrell, old, sharp, and fearless, sat with a basket of summer plums, carving out stones with a tiny knife. All rose when Joffrey entered, escorted by a pair of Kingsguard in mirror-bright breastplates. He walked without cane or support, though every step felt like fiery iron knitting beneath his thigh. The council chamber dimmed when he removed the silk veil from his face. Torches guttered. A swallow sounded somewhere in the rafters. Even Tywin's granite expression flickered. "Your Grace," the hand said, rising. "We thank the gods for your swift recovery." He gestured to a seat carved in the likeness of a roaring lion. Joffrey sat, ignoring the throb that lanced up his spine. Business commenced. War levies, rebuilding the fleet, distributing grain to soothe starving small folk. Each speaker paused too often, eyes straying to the marred side of the king's face. Joffrey savored their discomfort. When Pycelle droned about stocks of milk of the poppy for wounded soldiers, Joffrey interrupted with a rasp. "They can drink river water and forget their pain, for all I care. The coin will build new scorpions for the city walls." Tyrion raised brows. "A fine plan, nephew. Let us hope the soldiers do not fall dead of infection before the next war." "Let them." Joffrey's good eye glittered. "I have more men to pull from the green." He gestured at the city beyond the tower. "Rabble is plentiful as rats, uncle." The imp's thin smile never reached his eyes. "Rats can bite, not when their teeth are pulled." Silence descended. Lady Olenna tapped the table with her fruit knife. "All this talk of rats makes an old woman hungry for cheese." Joffrey's fist struck the armrest. The poppy had dulled his nerves but not his temper. "I will not be mocked. Never that," the Queen of Thorns replied, calm as dawn, merely wondering if the Iron Throne plans to rule by fear alone. "Fear feeds obedience, true, but it also breeds knives in darkness." Cersei half rose, but Joffrey waved her down. "Knives in darkness, my lady, find throats no matter the king's face. Best to show the realm what happens when one comes for me." He nodded to Ser Boros.
"Fetch Ser Kettleblack."
The council watched, bewildered, as Kettleblack was brought in, arm in a sling, one cheek blistered from his own encounter with stray fire. Joffrey ordered him stripped of armor. "You failed to shield your king," he pronounced. "For that failure, your eyes are forfeit." No one spoke as the knight of the Kingsguard was pressed to his knees. Ser Island Payne drew the same sword he had used on the stable boy. 2 wet pops later, twin spheres rolled across the rushes, leaving slick trails. Kettleblack shrieked until Payne cracked the pommel across his temple. He sagged, twitching. Joffrey turned to the council. "See how a king burns away weakness." Tywin's eyes burned like banked coals. If he disapproved, his voice did not show it. "A lesson, surely." Tyrion's mouth had flattened to a thin white line. Olenna sucked a plum stone clean and flicked it aside. Varys bowed deeper than before. "A lesson," he echoed. "Indeed." Rumor galloped through King's Landing quicker than ravens on a fair wind. By sunset, small folk whispered that their young king had traded beauty of flesh for beauty of flame, that half his face was a dragon's skull, that he had drank wildfire to survive, that Queen Cersei wept nightly, fearing her son had become a demon. Candle makers sold new saint candles molded to resemble a half-scarred boy king. Prostitutes painted one side of their faces with ash and charged double. Septons preached of the stranger's mark, while in flea-bottom children ran with masks of tattered cloth and screamed at passers-by, "Bow or burn!" The court did little to quell such tales. Joffrey commanded the pyromancers of the Alchemists' Guild to prepare a public display, the greatest fountain of wildfire seen since Aerys Targaryen's reign. He wished for spectacle, for awe, for fear carved upon the city's bones. The guild protested the danger. Joffrey had their master pumped full of wildfire paste and ignited at the Red Keep gate. The man's screams faded before his corpse did. After that, the guild obeyed. When Lord Tywin suggested caution, Joffrey merely smiled with half a mouth. "The realm can watch its king dance with fire," he said, "and remember what it means to cross me." Yet not all eyes watched in dread. In the royal sept, Marjorie Tyrell prayed daily beside the Iron Throne, roses woven into her dark gold hair. She asked the Seven to soften her betrothed's suffering, to grant him grace and patience. To the court, her devotion gleamed like sunrise. Joffrey watched unseen, a shadow among pillars. He noted how candles made her cheeks glow like ripe fruit, how courtiers sighed at her kindness. He ground teeth into split lip until copper flooded his tongue. Beauty breeds loyalty, he thought, but loyalty can be bought with fear just as dearly. That night, he ordered his steward to summon Marjorie to his bedchamber. She arrived draped in Tyrell green silk, hair bound with ivory nodules. Candlelight caught the faint sheen of sweat upon her collarbone. Whether from summer heat or nervousness, Joffrey could not tell. He dismissed everyone but Ser Marin Trant, who shut the door and posted outside. For a heartbeat, they stood alone. Marjorie curtsied deep, eyes lowered. "Your Grace, look at me." The words rasped like rusted hinges. She obeyed, and in that instant Joffrey tasted something unexpected. Not pity, nor disgust, but a soft sorrow. Her gaze did not skitter away. Instead it lingered, studying the ragged edge where his ear had melted, the puckered seam at his jaw. "I prayed for your healing," she said. "Prayers are wind." He stepped closer. She did not flinch. "Do I frighten you?" "Wildfire is meant to frighten," she answered, voice gentle. "But flowers grow even in ash." The line sounded rehearsed, crafted for courtiers' ears. Yet her eyes held no artifice. Joffrey found himself unsettled. "Kiss me," he commanded. Marjorie's lips brushed the unscarred side, feather light. A shudder coursed through him, half pain, half something hotter. He touched her waist, feeling how slender she seemed against his armored sleeve. But when he guided her fingers to the ruined flesh, she did not pull away. She cupped his cheek as though cradling a delicate relic. Heat pulsed beneath bandage and scar. "When I'm your queen," she whispered, "the realm will see more than wounds. They will see a king tempered by fire." Tempered. The word lodged inside him like a hook. "And if they do not, then let them burn." At that Joffrey laughed, a ragged hoarse bark that peeled at the scabs in his throat. He pressed his mouth to hers, tasting rosewater and poppy. For the first time since the balcony, the wildfire inside him did not consume. It forged. Outside the capital, ravens carried tales of a half-burned boy-king who punished disloyalty with tongues and eyes, who walked nightly among pyre pillars of green flame, whose betrothed kissed charred flesh and smiled. Small lords whispered of madness akin to Ares, others of divine favor, for had not dragons birthed themselves from flame? In distant Riverrun and Dragonstone and Bitterbridge, bannersmen weighed fear of the Lannisters against disgust at such cruelty. The war had shifted shape along with the king. Within the Red Keep's hallowed chambers, alliances twisted. Lord Varys drifted like a rosy ghost between factions, collecting whispers. Littlefinger smirked behind steepled fingers, tallying coin and favors. Tyrion found himself both handless, uncrowned as Hand of the King, and voiceless. Joffrey heard his counsel but obeyed only when it suited cruelty. One dawn, Tyrion climbed the Tower of the Hand to find Sansa Stark watching sunrise alone upon a balcony. Her auburn hair caught the light, and tears glittered upon lashes. She started when he spoke her name. "He will not stop," Tyrion warned. "The wildfire outside is nothing compared to what burns behind that mask." Sansa hugged herself. "I pray for the gods to take him."
To your own side.
"Pray instead for wisdom, my lady, or steel." Her blue eyes hardened, and in them Tyrion glimpsed embers of something fierce. Perhaps wildfire could spread in more ways than one. Joffrey's new rule crystallized on the first day of the next moon, when he decreed a festival of flame to celebrate victory. At dusk, thousands crowded the King's Road leading to the Great September of Baelor, each spectator clutching a clay bowl of oil and wick. At the king's command, archers loosed flaming shafts that arced over the city like fiery comets, igniting every bowl at once. The road became a river of fire. From a dais before the sept, Joffrey stood veiled in crimson silk, Marjorie at his side in green. The crowd gasped at the infernal beauty, half terror, half rapture. Then the veil slipped, gasps turned to screams. Yet in that pandemonium Joffrey heard something else. Cheers, ragged, unsure, but real. A chant swelled first among Lannister men but spread to small folk. Fire King! Fire King! They stomped and waved burning bowls until the night pulsed with emerald and gold. Joffrey raised his arms. Flames roared. The chant thundered. He closed his good eye and inhaled smoke, pain, awe, all fuel to the furnace of his will. The wildfire had stolen half his face but given him the kingdom entire. And in the shadows beneath the sept's marble steps, Arya Stark, ragged urchin dressed as a candle girl, watched with cold intent, fingering the edge of a stolen blade and whispering 3 names to herself. In the weeks that followed, the king's visage graced new coins. One profile of pristine lion youth, the reverse a snarling, burn-scarred mask. The message was clear: 2 faces, 1 king. Merchants paid in silver lions prayed, they never met the king's darker profile in person. Scribes inked scrolls citing edicts against disobedience. Higher levies on houses that had lingered neutral, mandatory tithes of grain to feed the capital, conscription quotas for every holdfast. The War of the 5 Kings had not ended. It had merely taken new form. All the while, beyond the city walls, whispers gathered like storm clouds. The riverlands bled beneath the mountains' raids. The north seethed over rumors that Sansa was still captive to a monster. In Highgarden, the Tyrells debated whether a scarred lion was worth the thorny crown. And across the narrow sea, a young queen with 3 growing dragons heard tale of another monarch who claimed kinship with flame. But those stories were for tomorrows yet to dawn. In King's Landing, the night of Wildfire remained etched upon every stone, and at its heart ruled a boy forged into terror and legend, Joffrey Baratheon, the Fire King, whose crooked smile promised that the greatest conflagrations were yet to come. The wildfire's afterglow still painted the red keep's highest spires an eerie emerald when dawn bled slowly into the sky, thin and pale as watered milk. In the silence between changing watches, King Joffrey stood upon the tower of the Hand's balcony, Tywin's balcony now, and let his cloak snap in the river wind like a banner of dried blood. He no longer slept well. The poppy draughts dulled pain but carried him into dreams where flames licked his bones and left him hollow. Better waking torment than that endless stoking of hidden fires. Below, gulls wheeled over the blackened hulks still rotting in the shallows. They cried like infants abandoned on a cold step, footsteps behind. He did not need to turn to know them. The short, quick stride of his uncle. "You'll catch chill," Tyrion said. "Maester Franken swears infections follow chills like sparrows after harvest." "I am already marked," Joffrey rasped. "A little fever will not finish me." Still, a king laid low by sniffles would make a poor tale for the singers. Tyrion stepped beside him, hands folded in front of his tunic. The scar from Ser Mandan's blade still pinked his nose. "They say 1,000 torches lit the King's Road last night. Quite the pageant." "Not enough." Joffrey's good eye flicked to a gull tearing flesh from driftwood. "I wanted towers of flame that scraped the mother's reach. King's Landing is wood and thatch. Scrape too high and the whole city burns. Then we rule only ashes." Tyrion's voice lowered. "Ashes do not pay taxes, nor do they cheer." Joffrey's lip twisted, the misshapen one so that pain lanced up his cheek. "Fear will cheer for me. It already does." "Fear listens, yes," Tyrion allowed. "But love sings, and songs travel faster than fear." He rested forearms on the stone railing, gaze falling over the charred fleet. "Your betrothal to Marjorie is a good start. Let the Tyrell rose spend its fragrance masking the smell of burnt flesh." Joffrey's fingers clenched the balustrade. The rough stone scraped scars beneath the glove. "I decide what masks what, uncle." He turned. You once said a king who hides behind his mother's skirts sooner or later finds those skirts aflame. Tyrion blinked. So I did. Now remember it. And remember Osmond Kettleblack's screams. He started for the doors. I will not be lectured on masks. Inside, the vaulted corridor shimmered with fresh torchlight, golden against pale pillars. Joffrey's personal guard. 8 knights of the King's Guard now, for he had promoted Ser Balon Swan to fill the sightless Osmond's place, snapped to attention. He strode between them like a man walking through his own legend, newly forged and not yet cooled. That same morning a girl who answered to Nan scurried through Flea Bottom's warren of alleys, a basket of tallow candles balanced on her hip. She kept her head down, hair cropped ragged, cheeks smudged black. No one spared a glance. Another urchin selling smoky tapers for half a copper. Under her tunic lay Needle, wrapped tight against the chill. Arya Stark had survived Harrenhal's dungeons, survived the Brotherhood's chaos, and now thrived among pickpockets and mudlarks. Yet every night the king's green fires lit the sky, and every dawn her list of debts whispered at her heart. Joffrey Baratheon, she mouthed, dodging a drunken Sellsword. Meryn Trant, Cersei Lannister, the Hound if he still lived, Alan Payne, Polliver, Raff the Sweetling, Tickler. Ser Amory Lorch was dead, but memories stayed alive. She had new names, too. Kettleblack. Though one had lost his eyes, the other 2 still swaggered. Qyburn, the soft-spoken leech who'd replaced Pycelle at the Queen's behest, creeping around with jars of secrets. And Grand Maester Franken, spawn of the Citadel's darker arts, they said, who brewed the king's poppy milk thick as tar. Names enough to keep the stranger fed for a year. But first she needed passage into the Red Keep. And for that she needed Jaqen Hagar, or someone like him. At the foot of Rhaenys' hill she paused to watch sparrows chirrup at sun-cracked statues. A septon preached atop a crate. The king bears the stranger's kiss, so we need not. Praise him who burns for us all. Around him, beggars held out bowls of charred bone, catching alms from frightened passers-by. Fear is their altar now, Arya thought. She turned away, clutching the tiny iron coin in her palm, Vala Morgulis, and whispered, "Soon." In the Tower of the Hand, Tywin Lannister reviewed parchments by light of a single lamp. Lord Bronn lounged nearby, newly made Lord of Stokeworth courtesy of one terrified noble widow. The Sellsword Lord flicked dust from his sleeve. Boys turning half the city into torchwood. Can't be good for trade. Tywin did not look up. Trade follows power. You hold a river command now, my lord. See that your tolls reflect Lannister interests. Bronn's grin gleamed. You'll have your coin. But coin can't bribe a blind mob. They see only masks. Talk in taverns says our young kings taken to eating hearts at supper. Let them talk. Tywin scribbled a note. Fear seeds obedience. Obedience feeds coffers. Fear also breeds blades in shadows. Bronn toyed with a dirk. Watch enough pits and you learn. Corner a cur and it bites. Tywin sealed the note. Hence why Curtis exists to break its teeth. Bronn's chuckle was low. I'll need more men. Take them. But curb your tongue around my grandson. He is still the crowned lion. Tywin's eyes, pale green as morning frost, met Bronn's. And lions eat curs. Bronn inclined his head. As you say, my lord. On the Maidenvault's sunny terrace, Marjorie Tyrell sat with Queen Cersei over seed cakes and hippocras. Bees droned among potted hyacinths. The smell of honey nearly masked the faint medicinal tang drifting from the king's chambers below. Cersei lifted a cup, gold rings flashing. His grace sleeps little. Your visits soothe him. Marjorie smiled demurely. I speak only gentle truths. The realm rises stronger for weathering flames. Truths are daggers in delicate hands. Cersei's eyes flicked to the younger woman's neckline, modest yet cunningly cut to draw gaze. You play the devoted maiden well. I play nothing, your grace. I mean to be his rock. Marjorie reached for a seed cake. Rocks endure storms longer than walls of pride. A thin breath escaped Cersei, amusement or warning. And yet rocks crack when struck hard enough. Flint sparks fire, Marjorie countered, voice ever sweet. And fire warms hearts. She took a deliberate bite. Cersei's smile stiffened. Hearts, yes, but wildfire consumes. She stood, skirts rustling like crow feathers. Pray your rose is fireproof. Left alone, Marjorie watched ants carry crumbs toward the balustrade's edge. She crushed one beneath a fingernail, then wiped the tip on her handkerchief embroidered with golden roses. We pray, she murmured, and we garden. Deep beneath the red keep, Qyburn's candles sputtered blue in secret chambers once used by Maegor's torturers. The air tasted of iron and old screams. A slab held Ser Gregor Clegane's hulking corpse, stitches snaking like river deltas across his torso. Qyburn adjusted copper tubing that dripped thick, dark fluid from a hooked bladder into slack veins. Beside him, Grand Maester Franken recorded notes in Crabbit script. The tincture holds? Franken asked, spectacles catching light. Blood thickens but flows, Qyburn replied. The essence of basilisk gall slowed decomposition. Franken tapped quill to lip. And the king's treatments? Dream wine dampens pain. Shade of the evening sharpens will. Qyburn's smile was thin. He feels himself reborn. Reborn men hunger, Franken warned, as do our creations. Qyburn laid a palm on the mountain's chest. Soon this one will open his eyes. He looked up. When it does, it shall kneel before the king, proof that death itself bends to Joffrey's fire. Franken's quill scratched anew. The realm will whisper of black arts. Let them. Qyburn lit another candle. Whispers bind chains tighter than steel. Across the city, Tyrion lunched at the shattered Anvil Inn, a cup of Dornish red untouched before him. Podrick Payne hovered, fidgeting. My lord, Ser Bronn says the gold cloaks want more coin to patrol the Fire King festivals. More coin, Tyrion swirled wine. The city's half-starved, and they clamor for silver. Tell Bronn hungry men make honest thieves. We'll pay after grain prices stabilize. He sipped, grimacing. And for the seven's sake, fetch me cheese that hasn't sweated in the sun. Pod darted off. From a corner table, Varys materialized as if a shadow had peeled from the wall. The king grows imaginative, the eunuch whispered. Tyrion snorted. Imagination is a fine spur until it impales you. Might I suggest a rein? Varys folded hands. A certain girl of Winterfell still resides here. Her innocence could temper him. Tyrion's scar itched. If Joffrey wants innocence, he'll roast it and suck marrow from the bones. Sansa is bait on a hook made of promises. Bait can ensnare sharks. Varys smiled. Should she escape, northern lords would howl for retribution. The lion cannot fight on two fronts indefinitely. Tyrion rubbed temples. What would you have me do? Set the girl free. The dwarf laughed, loud enough to draw glances. Free? The city is a maze and Joffrey the Minotaur. Varys's eyes glimmered. Even minotaurs sleep. He slid a folded parchment across the table. A route beneath the city. Old smuggler's ways. Tyrion left the parchment unopened. Why help me? I serve the realm. Varys touched his heart. And the realm burns. Tyrion lifted wine to his lips but tasted only ash. That evening, Joffrey ordered the throne room cleared of courtiers save a single prisoner. Ser Dantos hollered, wine-soaked and trembling. Candelabras cast twitching shadows across the iron monstrosity of swords. Joffrey lounged upon it, draped in black samite embroidered with crimson flames. His burn scar was uncovered. Below the dais, Sansa Stark stood flanked by guards, hands clasped tightly, knuckles white. Ser Dantos, Joffrey rasped, savoring how the night quailed. You owe me a song. Dantos bowed too low, nearly toppling. Your grace, I am no singer. Fool only. A fool who forgot his place. The king gestured. Ser Meryn shoved Sansa forward. She stumbled. Please, your grace, she stammered. He is loyal. Loyalty cannot be drunk, Joffrey said.
Sin, ser dontos.
Sing of flames. Dantos's voice cracked through a bawdy river song before faltering. Sweat, wine stink, rolled down his face. On the second verse, he slurred a line. Joffrey twitched a finger. Ser Island moved like a shadow, blade flashing. Dantos's ear flew, blood spurting. Sansa screamed. Joffrey's laugh rattled the hall. Wrong note. Dantos collapsed, sobbing. Joffrey rose. Enough. He addressed the hall's emptiness, yet his voice carried. For crimes of drunken dereliction and insulting the generosity of his king, Ser Dantos hollered forfeits his life. Sansa rushed forward, falling to knees. Mercy, your grace. He saved me once. Mercy. Joffrey's eye gleamed. Mercy is Wildfire. Beautiful, fatal, and mine alone to give. He gestured again. Sansa clutched Island's leg, but the headsman shook her free. Steel hissed. Blood sprayed fire-lit stone. Joffrey watched Sansa's face as despair cracked porcelain. She did not faint this time. Instead, her tears stopped abruptly, leaving eyes hollow. Interesting, he thought. The girl learns. Afterward, he ordered red wine poured upon the throne steps to wash blood away. The smell mingled copper and grape and pleased him. Arya saw the spilt wine blood being sluiced into the gutter. She plunged candles into a pail to snuff wicks and hurried past gold cloaks rolling a corpse in canvas. Dantos, she guessed. Another life offered to Wildfire. Farther on, she ducked into the shadows of a narrow court where ragpickers slept on pallets. There she met Gendry, hammer slung at his belt. Storm's end is done, he whispered. I'm leaving tonight. Brotherhood has men waiting in the woods. Arya's throat tightened. Leave then. I have names unslain. You'll die. Maybe. She showed him the iron coin. Or maybe death answers me. Gendry scowled. Fancy words won't stop swords. No, she agreed. Needle will. She hesitated. Come with me. He shook his head. I forge iron, not destinies. Fare you well, Aerie. A rough hug. Then he was gone, boots echoing down dark steps. Loneliness cut colder than winter wind. Arya wiped her cheeks, smearing soot. Stick them with the pointy end, she reminded herself, and slipped into the night. In the small council chamber, storm clouds gathered over parchment maps. Lord Baelish spoke of new loans from the Iron Bank. They prefer borrowers who do not immolate their own ports. Varys relayed tidings from the Reach. Lord Mace frets the cost of sending grain if fires threaten his wagons. Tywin listened, fingers drumming. Joffrey arrived late, flanked by Ser Balon and Ser Meryn. He carried no scepter, only a small iron brazier in which green flames coiled lazily. He set it before the council. Heat washed their faces. Wildfire devours debt, he announced. We owe the Iron Bank. We burn the ledgers. We owe the Tyrells. We burn the grain. He leaned close. The fire cast hellish light across his ruined cheek. If we burn all, we owe nothing. Littlefinger's smile froze. Coin cannot rise from ashes, your grace. Coin is smoke, Joffrey countered. Smoke can choke kings. Tywin's voice cracked like a whip. Enough. He stood. Leave us. The Kingsguard looked to Joffrey. The boy king considered, then nodded. When the chamber emptied save Lannister blood, Tywin advanced. You shame our banners, Tywin said. A king may wield fear, but fear must be aimed like a spear, not spilled like piss. Joffrey met his stare. You fear me. Tywin did not blink. I fear folly, and folly I crush. He placed a scroll upon the table. A raven from Harrenhal Robb Stark marching south again. Winter wolves gather. Houses Tully and Fry waver. Let them come. I will roast them. Can you roast 3 armies at once? The Boltons creep, the Greyjoys raid, the Dornish watch. Tywin's voice dropped. Wars are won with banks and bread as surely as blades. You burn both. Joffrey's breath rattled. I am fire. Tywin seized the brazier, barehanded. Skin sizzled. He hurled it into a fountain. Steam hissed. Fire misused turns back upon itself. He thrust his branded palm forward. Remember Ares. For a heartbeat neither moved. Smoke drifted like ghosts between them. Joffrey's eye flicked to the steaming brazier, saw how easily Tywin had quenched it. Fury pulsed through him, hot and helpless. Yet something colder stirred. Respect? Fear? He hated both. "Teach me, then," he said at last, voice low. "Forge me sharper." Tywin's burned hand closed into a fist. "First lesson, listen." Joffrey listened. 3 nights later, the court gathered for a masked revel in the Queen's ballroom. Musicians played lilting Myrish strings. Perfume clouds mingled with sandalwood. Lords wore half-masks of ivory or onyx. Ladies, butterflies of silk. The king entered last, face bare save a circlet of twisted black iron studded with tiny garnets like drops of dried blood. Gasps rippled. He allowed them a full measure of his ruin before raising a mask of beaten gold shaped as a snarling lion and tying it over scars. Relief flooded the hall. They preferred illusions. He danced first with Marjorie. Her gown shimmered willow green, shoulders bare. When the music paused, she pressed a rose into his palm, dew fresh despite night's heat. "You bloom in darkness," she whispered. "And you play in ashes," he thought, but said instead, "Do roses feel the flame?" "If watered." She smiled, but he saw calculation. A gardener's eye measuring soil and sun. Let her garden. Lions prowled gardens at night. Their next dance ended abruptly when a juggler's torch spilled oil onto a tapestry. Flames leapt. Screams flared louder than fire. Joffrey laughed, clapped, and ordered musicians play on while servants beat smoldering wool. Lords shifted uneasily. Marjorie touched his arm. "Perhaps we should retire." "Fear not," he said. "Fire is my subject, but not mine." Her voice gentle, yet steel lay beneath petals. She guided him from the ballroom. Whispers rose like birds startled from eaves. In the corridor, she paused beside a tall mirror. "Look!" He faced his reflection. The gold lion mask, crown gleaming, rich velvet. King whole. She lifted the mask. Scar tissue glistened. His blind eye stared milky. "Now look." She set the mask again. "When the realm sees this, they see strength. When they see the other, they see pain." "Pain is strength," he growled. "Not always." She touched his bandaged ear. "Sometimes pain is simply pain." He jerked away. "Go to your September prey. As you command." She curtsied and left. Joffrey turned to the mirror again. 2 kings stared back, gold and green. Which would rule? Arya slipped into the revel dressed as a page, tray of sweetmeats balanced high. She moved room to room, charting entrances. Needle rode the small of her back. Her eyes drank faces, lords unmasked to sip wine, knights sweating under leather visors, maids giggling. She spotted Sansa near a pillar, pale and stiff as polished marble beside Lord Tywin. Their gazes met for a heartbeat. Sansa's widened. Arya shook her head, a silent plea for silence, then disappeared among revelers. She found Thuras of mere drunk beside a brazier, red robe scorched from some failed trick. Good. Chaos-cloaked knives. She wound toward the king's corridor, but 2 Kingsguard blocked passage. Arya veered, laying sweets before a fat-landed knight she recognized. Ser Harry Swift, Tyrion's cousin once removed maybe. He grunted thanks. When she turned, Tyrion himself stood before her, wine goblet dwarfing his hand. "Page," he said, "are there lemon cakes on that tray?" "Only sugared plums, my lord." "Pity." His mismatched eyes studied her. The half-helmed page's cap shadowed Arya's features, yet recognition flickered. Tyrion set goblet aside. "You look tired, lad." "Long night," she muttered, voice low. "Too long for some." He glanced toward the king's corridor. "Business has a way of arriving uninvited. Best rest while you may." Arya swallowed. Did he know? His gaze lingered on her sword hand, then shifted. "Off with you, before Ser Meryn decides pages make passable shields." She fled into deeper halls, heart drumming. Midnight tolled. Tywin dismissed the last guest and strode toward the royal apartments, cloak lined with fox fur rustling. Ahead, he caught movement, a shadow hugging alcoves. Hand resting upon sword pommel, he followed, boots silent. The shadow paused, easing a door. Tywin's blade whispered loose. He caught the intruder by the collar. "Hold!" A gasp, small, childlike. He yanked the page out. A skinny boy with sharp gray eyes. Not a boy, the face a Stark. "Arya," he breathed. She stabbed. Needle scraped breastplate seam. Tywin slammed her wrist against stone. Steel fell clinking. "Guards!" Footsteps thundered distant. Too far. Tywin dragged Arya into a side room, barred tea. He door. "You're braver than wise, girl," she spat. "I'll kill you. Kill him. Perhaps. But not tonight." He knelt, sword at her throat. "Listen. The North bleeds because your brother forgets lessons. Learn from him. Patience." He reached into cloak, produced a dagger, Valyrian steel, thin as winter wind. "Take this. Leave the city by the old dragon pit tunnels. Slit throats in the dark, not marble halls." Arya trembled, uncertain. "Why help me?" "Because wars end faster when fate's wheels are greased." He pressed dagger hilt to her palm. "Go. Kill who you wish, but do it far from my grandson until I say." He stood, unbarred door. "Run." She fled. Tywin watched shadows swallow her and wiped blood from his gauntlet where needle's point had pricked. One life spared now might purchase many later. Joffrey woke before dawn. Soaked in sweat, dreams of molten masks cracking. He summoned Grand Maester Franken. "More shade of the evening," he croaked. Franken bowed. "A smaller dose, perhaps." A tankard. Pain flared. He slapped the maester with his good hand. "And bring Qyburn." When Qyburn arrived, linen tunic daubed in dried ichor, Joffrey demanded, "Is it ready?" "A day more, your grace. Stitching must seal, else blood will flood cavities." "I want it breathing by tomorrow's dusk." His eyelid twitched. "It will kneel." "It shall." Qyburn bowed lower. "And it shall never rise without your leave." Joffrey reclined, poppy wine swirling through veins. The mountain reborn, his champion forged from death. Let the realm behold the Fire King's night. At sunrise, Tyrion stood atop the city wall overlooking the Blackwater. Sunlight painted ships' skeletons bronze. Podrick timidly approached. "My lord, a letter from Braavos." Tyrion cracked the wax. Iron Bank ink threatened default on crown debts. He laughed. "Curdled milk to a man scalded by wildfire." A coin mattered. Wars needed coin. He watched smoke still curling from the city's edge, listened to faint prayer bells. If Tywin thought fear alone would forge peace, he was wrong. A realm starved of hope would swallow desperation like last year's harvest. Tyrion rolled the parchment, staring at the charred hulks. Somewhere beyond those waters, dragons grew. The wind smelled of salt and fire and something else. Change. He turned inland.
Pot, fetch parchment.
"We write High Garden." "High Garden, my lord?" "If roses wilt in ash, perhaps they prefer different soil." Tyrion's smile was thin. "And thorns do love lion flesh." Sansa sat at a narrow window in Maegor's Holdfast, sewing white silk into a handkerchief. Each stitch bit skin where she jabbed too quick. Her thoughts beat like wings. Ser Dantos was dead. Joffrey blurred lines between justice and sport until they overlapped in arterial spray. She needed escape. That evening, a parchment slipped under her door. A charcoal sketch of a fat man in a jester's cap, throat slit, and below, a single word. Remember.
No signature.
But she knew. Tears blurred ink. She folded the paper into her sleeve and kept sewing, stitch by stitch, shaping pain into pattern. Arya reached the Dragon Pit ruins by moonset. Fires glimmered far below on the city's eastern rise. She found the broken statue Tywin had described and located the iron ring buried under rubble. Pulling, she opened a stone trap. Stale air wafted. Before descending, she unsheathed Tywin's dagger, light, glass-sharp. "All men must die," she whispered. In the tunnel, darkness closed like a fist. She let it, 5 leagues south, at the headwaters of the Mander, Lord Randall Tarley received word from Highgarden. Sow grain for King's Landing no more until the Queen and her father guarantee fair prices and safe passage. Tarley grimaced. Starve the capital and rats will gnaw. But the Reach obeyed roses. Across bitter mountains, Dorne's Prince Doran weighed raven missives. Wildfire, burned king, Tyrell uncertainty. His gout-swollen hands lingered on an old promise. Fire and blood. He ordered scouts to the Prince's Pass. In the north, bannermen whispered of Robb's advance. Bolton knives gleamed behind polite smiles. The Freys bartered daughters like rusty coins. Winter wolves howled beneath aurora-bright skies. All Westeros shifted. On the appointed dusk, Joffrey stood in the throne room, cloaked in night-black silk. Qyburn entered leading a massive shape draped in linen bandages. Gasps rippled among assembled lords. Franken muttered prayers. The creature knelt with creaking joints. "Rise," Joffrey commanded. Linen fell. The mountain's corpse towered, skin pale as old parchment, eyes dead blue. A sigil burned into his breast. A lion aflame. He moved like a warhorse in plate. "Kneel," Joffrey said. The towering knight obeyed, metal ringing stone. "The king has conquered death," Qyburn proclaimed. "Behold Ser Robert Strong, sworn shield to his grace." Silence, terrified, awed. Joffrey raised his arms. "Let all traitors know. Even the grave cannot break my will." In the back row Tyrion felt bile rise. Varys whispered, "Ice Thane meets Fire King." Marjorie pressed fingertips to lips, eyes wide. Sansa swallowed sickness. And somewhere in tunnels dripping with dragon bones, Arya Stark traced names onto stone with a dagger of night-dark steel. Days passed. Ser Robert Strong patrolled corridors like a mute giant. Servants fled shadows he cast. Rumor claimed he drank nothing, ate nothing, bled ichor. Joffrey kept him close, a living monument. At feasts, the king fed cuts of meat to the mountain's lifeless mouth, laughing when they fell out chewed by no one. One twilight, Joffrey led Strong to the cells where Eddard Stark's bones lay awaiting transport north. "Open it," he ordered. The coffin's lid creaked. Gray-brown bones glimmered in torchfire. "Remove the skull." Qyburn complied, passing it to the king wrapped in velvet. Joffrey placed it upon a pedestal beside the Iron Throne. "Let every supplicant kneel twice. Once to the king, once to the folly of rebellion." Varys closed eyes. Tywin's jaw tightened. Sansa fainted. Marjorie caught her. The court watched hope calcify. Beyond the walls, famine crept. Grain wagons from the Reach slowed. River trade choked by new tariffs. Small folk rioted, screaming for bread. Gold cloaks cracked skulls. Joffrey appeared atop the battlements flanked by Robert Strong and hurled loaves soaked in lamp oil, lighting them as they flew. Burning bread rained upon the mob. They fled, hair aflame, screams swallowed by night. Tyrion, watching hidden, turned away. "He'll break the realm. Perhaps," Varys answered, emerging from shadows. "Unless the realm breaks him first." Tyrion considered. "Not with swords." He bathed in fire. "Blades are naught but cold iron. Then we require a colder blade." Varys produced a scroll sealed with a 3-headed dragon. "From Meereen, dragons grow." Tyrion's eyes widened. "You would invite Daenerys?" "I invite balance." Varys' smile was sorrowful. "When fire rages, one summons rain." Tyrion weighed scroll against the stench rising from the city. Rain or flood? In the Godswood courtyard, Marjorie met Sansa beneath a bare weirwood. Winter's kiss tinged leaves crimson. "You must be brave," the rose said. "I'm afraid," the wolf replied. "So am I." Fear is a seed. Plant it and let courage bloom. Sansa's eyes flicked to a gardener trimming frostbitten hedges. "Your words are gardens. His are torches." "Gardens need sun," Marjorie whispered. "When the sun returns, invite me north." Roses climb walls. Sansa's breath clouded. "North is snow and stone. Roses root deep." They parted as septas approached with prayer books. Behind a lattice, Qyburn watched, taking silent count. Arya navigated tunnels toward the black cells, dagger poised. She passed skeletons of dragons small and great, bones whiter than milk glass. In one cavern, torches flickered and voices. She froze. R'hlloreth's light reveals shadows. Melisandre's red silk glowed ruddy. Beside her stood Thuras, fire in hand. They knelt before a massive skull, Valyrian perhaps, within whose jaws burned red flame. Arya crept closer. The priestess spoke. The Fire King misuses flame. R'hllor chooses true vessels. Thuras drank from a wineskin. Stannis was to be vessel. Melisandre's gaze pierced darkness. Stannis spurns the Lord's commands. Another comes. Who? Dragon's daughter. Melisandre's voice trembled reverent. Fire made flesh yet unburnt. Arya felt chill. Fire and daughter. Daenerys Targaryen. She slipped away before shadows saw. Snowflakes drifted weeks early over the narrow sea when Daenerys Stormborn stood upon the prow of her flagship, Drogon circling above. Winds carried whispers of a king scarred by his own flames. She touched Drogon's scales. The world forgets what true fire means.
Ser Barristan Baud.
Westeros burns. They will look to you. First they will fear. She mounted Drogon. Then they will kneel. Dragons screamed across iron-gray sky. Back in King's Landing, Joffrey surveyed new trebuchets on the walls. Wildfire casks hung ready. He turned to Robert Strong. If dragons come, we meet them with greater flame. Strong said nothing. Joffrey imagined the mountain spirit snarling agreement. He breathed deep, scar tissue stretching. Pain rooted him, constant reminder. Below, Sansa attended morning court, allowed a single hour's walk each day. She passed Lord Baelish, whose eyes lingered hungry. She met Tyrion's and saw pity. Beyond them, far doors cracked open. A page dripping mud burst in. Ravens from Harrenhal. The young wolf marches. The hall buzzed. Joffrey rose. Let wolves come. We'll collar their heads beside their fathers. He gestured to Eddard's skull shrine. Tywin's voice rang. We ride to meet them. I ride, Joffrey corrected. The realm will see their king unafraid. Maesters objected. Cersei begged. He silenced all. Robert Strong would ride with him, Marjorie by his side to witness glory. That night Cersei sought her father. He'll die, she said. Perhaps. Tywin poured wine. Or learn. Cersei's nails bit palms. Learn? From battle? From loss? Tywin sipped. Some fires smother themselves. Dawn's chill saw banners snapping. Lannister crimson, Baratheon gold, Tyrell green. Drums thundered. Joffrey mounted a white destrier caparisoned with flames. Robert Strong atop a black charger towered like death itself. Marjorie watched from the gate, rose brooch sparkling. As the host rode south, Sansa at her window clutched her handkerchief, now embroidered with a wolf beneath burning sun. A silent prayer. Inside Maegor's keep, Arya slipped from a tapestry passage, dagger hidden. Her list had grown shorter. Tonight, it shortened again. At the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, Tyrion boarded a river galley bound for Duskendale. Pod and Bronn followed. Varys saw him off. Carry my regards to the Darklands, the spider said. And remember, rain quenches, but floods drown. Tyrion smirked. And spiders drown easiest. The galley cast off. 3 days out from the city, campfires dotted fields near Bitterbridge. Joffrey paced before his pavilion, wild with energy. Ravens brought news. Robb Stark's vanguard broke Ser Stafford's host near Maidenpool. Wolves howled at northern banners. Night lay thick when Marjorie entered his tent. Candlelight illumined scars, sweat, hunger. She knelt. Rest, she said. I rest when the wolf's head adorns my gate. She rose, cupped his face, both sides. He flinched but let her. Kings forge peace through mercy as well as might. Mercy breeds betrayal. Mercy breeds loyalty. He shoved her away. Leave. She did, tears glittering but unshed. Outside, Robert Strong loomed. Joffrey drank shade wine, dreams swirling. In sleep he walked corridors of green fire while dragons roared above and his own face melted anew, revealing bone gleaming gold. He woke screaming. Robb Stark's army crossed the Blackwater tributary at first light. Wolves on gray field-filled ridges.
War answert.
Joffrey arrayed his lines. Lannister center, Tyrell right, Crownlands left. Robert Strong at the king's side, Tywin commanding cavalry flank. Trumpets blared. Arrows darkened sky. Battle surged. Wolves met lions in mud slick with blood. Joffrey rode forward too soon, eager. A Northman's axe shattered his shield. Strong cleaved the attacker in half. Joffrey laughed, spurring deeper. Arrows pinged off Strong's plate. Green firepots lobbed from behind burst among Stark spearmen. Men screamed, fur alight. Yet Wildfire cared not for banners. A gust carried emerald flame onto Crownlander pikes. They broke, shrieking. Tywin saw chaos. Wolves pushing center where Joffrey flailed. He signaled retreat horn. Joffrey heard but charged. He leaned to loose crossbow. String snapped. A northern archer's shaft struck his thigh. Pain like molten lead. He toppled, leg trapped under horse. Strong heaved beast aside, scooped Joffrey as arrows thudded his armor. They lumbered toward reserve lines. Behind, Tyrell knights covered with drawl, trumpets wailing. By dusk, fields smoked. Wolves howled victory songs among corpses. Lannisters fell back across the river. Joffrey's rage shook pavilions. "I had them," he screamed at Tywin. "You had death," Tywin said. "Look." He tore away bandage. The wound festering, blackening. Poisoned arrowheads. Without Maester's saw, you lose the leg. Joffrey convulsed. Pain dwarfed Wildfire memories. Shade wine dulled. Nothing quenched. Robert Strong stood silent sentinel, but could not strike pain. Joffrey realized fire could scar even Flame's king. In fever, he muttered to Franken, "Fix it." Franken bled leeches, poured puckered salves. Still black spread. On the third night, he whispered hard truth. "To save your grace, we must cut." Joffrey shrieked denial. Qyburn arrived with a saw. Marjorie held his hand until he bit through glove and flesh. They took the leg at mid-thigh. His screams carried beyond campfires to wolf sentries watching. When the Lannister host limped back toward the capital, banners trailed like torn cloaks. Rumor outran them. The Fire King maimed, wolves victorious. In King's Landing, bread riots flared anew. Gold cloaks deserted posts. The mountain's corpse night crushed skulls in the market. Yet fear fermented into fury. Sansa felt it like thunder beneath floorboards. She walked with new poise, head high. People watched her and hope flickered. Arya returned through sewers, clothes stiff with blood not hers. Needle-tasted names, her list was shorter. She saw crowds swelling and grinned. Tyrion landed in Duskendale, meeting secret envoys, Tully, Arryn, Tyrell dissenters. Coin and quills traded hands. A message sailed east aboard a swift caravel. To the Queen of Dragons, Westeros burns. Within the Red Keep's dank chamber, Joffrey lay upon silken cushions, stump bandaged, face glistening. He ordered mirrors covered. When Cersei entered, he wept rage. "They laughed as they cut," he cried. "No, my sweet." She dabbed tears. "They saved you. I will burn every wolf den. Level Winterfell. So salt. You will heal first." "Fire doesn't heal," he hissed. "It consumes." Cersei stroked his hair. "Then let it consume, and rise anew." He stared past her at Robert Strong, immobile. Pain and darkness braided inside. Fire within met void without. "Rise," he whispered, not to Strong, but to himself. Outside his chamber, Qyburn conferred with Franken. The wound festers still. Infection wars against royal blood. Franken nodded. "Fire may cauterize." Qyburn's smile was thin. "Then we feed the king his own gospel." A fortnight later, smoke again crowned Rhaenys' hill. A pyre built of wolf effigies and traitors' corpses ablaze. From a balcony Joffrey watched, pale, hollow-eyed, cane propping his balance. Bandage hid stump beneath crimson cloak trimmed sable. He raised a torch. Robert Strong flanked him. The mob below roared approval and horror intertwined. The king's voice, raw, echoed, "Flame purges weakness." The lion stands on one leg, yet stands taller than all. He hurled the torch. Pyre flared emerald and gold. Sparks spiraled skyward, smoke shapes of dragons, wolves, roses. A drop in the wind carried ember to a thatch roof. Then another. Soon flames licked a merchant row. Wind shifted. Fire jumped street to street faster than bells rang. Panic surged. Joffrey laughed, seeing city burn anew his city. But pain spiked, leg throbbing like a coal. He swayed. Strong steadied him. Below, his people shrieked. And in that moment Wildfire's glow cast on blind, I reflected not awe but emptiness. He realized, fear could not lift him now, not while tethered to an iron crutch. Power slipping like ash. He gripped balcony rail until knuckles bled. "At any cost," he rasped, "I remain king." Behind him, unseen, Sansa approached with a cup of wine laced by Varys's hand, and by hers. Beside her, Marjorie carried prayers sweet as honey. Arya crouched across rooftops, arrow notched. Tyrion's messages flew overseas. Daenerys's sails billowed west. Flames devoured the night, and somewhere, softly, a dragon answered with thunder. Cold drizzle smothered the last of the pyre's green flare by dawn, leaving the capital shrouded in a haze that stank of wet ash and burned tallow. Inside Maegor's holdfast, the corridors were quieter than a crypt. Servants stepped softly lest their heels echo and draw the mountain's glass-blue stare. The Fire King slept at last, drugged past pain, past fear, past the cliff edge where rage and madness met. In the stillness, his mother watched the rise and fall of his chest as though counting what breaths might remain. Yet no hush could last in a city built upon daggers. The bells of the great September tolled fourth hour when a hooded rider clattered through the mud gate, cloak edged in reach green but spattered with river muck, passing curious gold cloaks with a flash of lily-stamped wax. He dismounted at the red keep's postern and vanished inside. Within the hour, a parchment lay beneath the Queen of Thorns' cup, for stark lines scratched in haste. Bread fails, rose wilts, winter blooms, garden burns. Lady Olenna read the riddle twice, tongued the inside of her cheek, and smiled like a cat spying cream. In the Tower of the Hand, Tywin's councils ran long past noon. Ravens brought grim tallies. 70 house banners lost in the Bitterbridge rout. 100 wagons of reach barley sacked by river raiders emboldened by rumor of the king's maiming. Fry envoys demanding recompense for slain kin who died screaming at your wildfire, Lord Hand. The lion studied each scroll with the same icy calm, until a single note, penned in Tyrion's distinct tilt, slipped beneath his eye. No words, only a mottled feather sealed inside. Dun gray tipped white, a northern wolf feather. Tywin folded the parchment, expression unreadable. "Ser Kevin," he said softly, "ready horses. For war. For negotiation." Tyrion broke fast aboard the galley Silver Dawn 2 days downriver, sea air sharpening his appetite as no court fare could. Bronn lounged on a coil of rope, tossing coins, while Pod stared aft where King's Landing smoke smeared the horizon. "When lions burn their own den," Bronn mused, "mice ought flee. Yet some mice scavenge," Tyrion replied. He unfolded a second scroll, this one bearing a green wax rose. Inside, Marjorie's practiced hand traced a single phrase, "The garden welcomes clever spiders." Below, in faint ink, "Fear alone cannot rule." Tyrion tapped the rail. "The girl learns quickly. Flowers grow toward light," Bronn said. "If the sun's legless, they bend elsewhere." A grim image. Tyrion flipped the scroll into the sea. But apartment. Beneath the red keep's granaries, Arya mapped tunnels with fingertip upon brick. Needle hung from her belt. Tywin's dagger nestled at her back. She counted paces, memorized alcoves, tasted the damp. Above her, The mountain's footfalls thunked along nightly rounds, slow, relentless, as though death itself patrolled. Arya whispered names: Joffrey, Cersei, Meryn, Eileen, each a knot in the thread she meant to cut. She found a forgotten Sally grate no wider than a millstone. Rusted hinges moaned when pried, but the night storm masked the sigh. Beyond, black water lapped stone, the river culvert feeding the Blackwater's edge. A way out or a way in. She marked it with chalk, then slipped back toward the kitchens where the catspaws of Flea Bottom met to share stolen broth. One face among many, none saw her go. Sansa's stitches bled rose petals across the linen she embroidered. A dire wolf encircled by thorns. She pricked finger after finger, mind far from silk. Dantos's death replayed until she tasted copper again. Every torchlit corridor echoed with the clang of the mountain's greaves. Yet resolve tempered terror. She gathered crumbs of courage from Marjorie's smiles, from Tyrion's half-knotted counsel, from a page of blank parchment slipped under her door at dusk. Blank save for a dark gray feather no larger than her nail. She hid it in her bodice and kept sewing. Qyburn and Franken stood over a brazier of bluish coals, distilling thick violet syrup whose fumes numbed the tongue at 10 paces. Dragon's tears, Franken murmured, and Duskshade. Are you certain? Certainty is refuge for septons, Qyburn replied, eyes shining with zeal. We treat a king, not a stable boy. His pain eclipses reason. Only oblivion grants rule. He lifted a crystal vial. 1 drop buys silence for a night. 2 buys dreams. 3 buys a shroud. Indeed. Qyburn corked the vial. But do we brew mercy or majesty?
Franken incht closer, spectacle fogging.
Majesty fiers endings. Then it must never end. The raven Daenerys had awaited since Astapor found her above the narrow sea, black wings beating out a storm's edge. Its message unfurled in Ser Barristan's gauntlets. Westeros aflame, king maimed, lions clawing one another. The queen read, lips moving in Valyrian. He burns his own city. Madness repeats, said Ser Jorah, as with the usurper's mad predecessor. Daenerys stared toward distant west. Madness, perhaps, or fear. She stroked Drogon's jaw where charcoal scales tipped red. Let them taste a dragon's fear instead. A gust caught her braid. Smoke from the raven's travel melted into sea spray. She breathed deep, salt and promise. Lord Randall Tarly inspected ranks of crossbowmen along the Rose Road. Rain slicked helms, but strings stayed dry under waxed covers. He eyed every man, scowled at each sagging spine, snarled at sloppy salute. When a pigeon fluttered down bearing scroll-sealed Tyrell green, he tore it open with thumb and forefinger calloused from years in gauntlet. Reading, his lips thinned. Signal the baggage to reverse, he barked. We march not to King's Landing. The captain hesitated. But the rose grain goes to bitter fields where crops can take. Tarly crushed the scroll. The lion eats his own cub. We will not feed him. In the bowels of the Sept dormitory, Melisandre knelt before a shallow copper basin, flame dancing across its oil surface. Across from her, Thuras swayed on knees, whispering Lollaress prayer between swigs. The red woman's eyes glowed. I see a crown of ash balanced on broken antlers, she intoned. I see a lion's heart smoldering, a wolf's shadow stretched long, and above them wings of night deeper than dragon. A true king, Thuras rasped, not him whose face melts. Melisandre's voice fell to a tremor. Another. Thuras tossed wine aside. Stannis yet?
No.
A prince reborn in salt and smoke. Yes, but not on Dragonstone's shore. Melisandre's gaze plunged deeper into flame. The song swells elsewhere now, fire and ice entwined. Thuras shivered despite heat. Then we follow? We wait. Fire moves. Tywin's riders reached the ford at Golden Tooth under banners wrapped tight against storm. Across muddied banks, northern outriders watched with wary spears. Ser Brynden Tully rode forward, cloak sodden but trout embroidery bright. Tywin nudged his stallion into knee-deep water. Blackfish. Lion. The old knight's eyes were iron. You cross at peril. I parley. Tywin extended bare hands. For prisoner. Brynden snorted. Your coffers cannot ransom wolves' honor. I offer no coin. Tywin's voice cut like frost. I offer kings. At that, Brynden's brows rose. Water rippled between horses. Speak. In the capital, gold cloaks patrolled streets 2 by 2, afraid to go alone even by sun. Riot fires scarred masonry black in jagged runnels. Shop shutters bore crude symbols daubed in pitch. Lion's head half-burnt. Wind carried ashes like snow. Marjorie Tyrell made her way through the narrow streets under plain cloak, escorted by 2 cousins disguised as hedge knights. They distributed baskets of oatcakes and onions, poured watered ale for children who eyed them with hunger equal parts belly and heart. Marjorie listened beneath their thanks. Mutterings that the city starved while a legless king burned bread for sport, that queen and grandfather plotted darkness, that wildfire pits ran beneath every lane ready to burst. She knelt by a boy missing 3 fingers, bandaged stump weeping. "Does it hurt?" she asked. He nodded, wide-eyed. She kissed his brow. "So does mine," she whispered, showing her palm where a sewing needle had pricked. "But pain reminds us we're alive. And alive we mend." She pressed 2 copper stars into his good hand. "Buy seed. Plant hope." The boy's smile cracked grime. By dusk, even her cousins wept at the wails of the hungry. When they reached the Red Keep, Marjorie's green cloak dripped soot as much as rain. She sent a letter north with swiftest raven. Roses fade yet grow anew. Grand Maester Franken shuffled into the king's chamber at twilight. Joffrey sat propped by velvet pillows, eyes bloodshot. "Dreams," he croaked. Franken measured 3 drops of duskshade into wine. The king seized the cup and drank deep. Sweat beaded his brow, pupils dilated. He lay back, lips twitching. Franken watched. Moments later, the king lurched upright, screaming, "Fire! Put it out! Mother!" He clawed at bandages until stitches tore. Strong stepped forward, gauntlet closing on thin shoulders, but Joffrey's flailing fist struck the knight's helm with sharp ring. Strong froze, then knelt, silent. Franken signaled pages. They bound Joffrey anew, swathed fresh cloth, forced poppy syrup past cracked lips. When breath slowed, Franken bent close. "Your grace must rest." Joffrey's good eye slipped half open. "Rest? When wolves are ash." "Wolves wander," Franken murmured, "but fires heed masters who dream wisely." Joffrey drifted. Franken straightened. At the door, Qyburn waited, shadow among torches. "Too much," the alchemist warned. Franken shrugged thin shoulders. "Not enough." Arya clung to a drainpipe outside the maiden vault roof, rain slicking her hair flat. Below, faint lamplight traced the window slit of the room where Sansa slept. A prison gilded, but prison nonetheless. Arya counted guard rotations. 2 men every 15 breaths. On the 20th round, the outer passage darkened. 1 guard slumped, silent, as a small shape darted behind Eris. Needle flashed once. Arya slipped through window and landed soft upon carpet. Sansa lay rigid, eyes wide. Recognition struck like lightning. "Arya?" she mouthed, tears springing. Arya pressed finger to lips. She sliced curtain cord, tied Sansa's bed linens into makeshift rope. "Climb," she whispered. Outside, thunder jarred stone. They slipped onto roof, rain graying the world. Hand in hand, they crept to Gargoyle Gutter where the linen rope dangled into darkness beyond sight. Far below, flags snapped in wind. "Can you climb?" Arya asked. Sansa wiped rain tears mix. "Yes." A shout cut through Gale guards inside, discovering blood. Arya jammed rope behind carved maw, tied knot. She slung needle. "Go!" Sansa swung over edge, feet searching hold. Arya followed, arms burning with weight. Lightning split sky, silhouette of 2 girls against castle wall. Below, the mountain's helm glinted torch glare as he strode into courtyard. They descended 5 body lengths when linen ripped. A seam parted. Rope snapped. Arya grabbed Sansa's wrist. They slammed against stone, rope trailing free. 50 feet of void yawned under boots scrabbling for purchase. Needle clattered. Lost. Courtyard alarms rose. Archers spilled from barracks. Arya hissed. She yanked a hidden knife, plunged into tether above them. Carving sheet to form new knot about gargoyle neck. Held. They resumed descent. An arrow cracked against wall, wood splintering. Another hissed past Arya's ear. Sansa whimpered but clutched rope. At 20 feet above ground, Arya leaped, rolled, came up crouching. Sansa landed hard, ankle twisting, but Arya hauled her upright. They dashed for shadowed postern just as Robert Strong emerged, great sword dripping fresh kill from hallway slaughter. The Revenant Knight paused, head swiveling, blue eyes blazing like corpse candle. Arya shoved Sansa through gate into hedge maze. Rain battered leaves. They raced labyrinthine turns while behind them steel crushed branches. Arya veered left at memory of chalk mark. The sewer great path. Guards shouted. Torches flickered beyond walls. Sansa stumbled but Arya dragged. They dropped through culvert into knee-deep runoff, waited until torchlight dimmed. Rats squealed. Above, stone lids slammed. Strong ceiling exits. Sansa sobbed when fetus-sized rat brushed leg. Arya pressed her to keep moving. Winter wind is colder, she said. Walk. Hours they trudged, surfacing at riverbank outside city. Dawn bled gray. Fisher hovel smoke rose. Freedom stank of mud and rot and hope. Sansa collapsed, cradling swollen ankle. Arya scanned horizon. North, she whispered. Always north. Behind the city walls, bells told escape. Joffrey woke to news the wolf girl had fled with traitor sister. His roar rattled pains. Strong will hunt. Heads, both. Cersei hushed him to pillow, but fury burned hotter than Stump's fever. That night he commanded gates sealed, sewers walled, beggars flayed for questioning. Stone men bled where none named wolves. Across the Golden Tooth, Tywin met Robb Stark beneath a tattered parley banner. The young wolf rode gray stallion, grief lines deepening since Talisa's death. Beside him Brienne of Tarth bore the sword Oathkeeper. Host ranks bristled behind each leader. Terms. Robb's voice carried thunder. Tywin inclined head. Peace for prisoners. Which prisoners? Robb's eyes hardened. Your sisters, and half the Northmen captured at Bitterbridge. Tywin's hand rested on pommel. In return, you march home. Swear no further assault south of the neck. The king keeps his throne. The king burns children. So did your father's enemies at Harrenhal. Tywin's tone unfaltering. War is fire. Brienne shifted. Justice is snow, slow, certain. Tywin answered with silence. Wind hissed over banners. Decide, he said at last. The girl travels north as we speak. Robb's breath hitched. Sansa and Arya. Tywin's lie was smooth. Safe. Hope flickered, allure glinting beneath ice. Robb weighed hearts against pride. Drums beat afar. Stark spears restless. Finally, we must confer. Tywin nodded, wheeling horse away. Behind calm mask he felt tremor. Dice cast upon winter board. Tyrion's galley made Gulltown, where Lord Royce's maester awaited with letters. Tyrell grain convoys halted, Dornish scouts marching, Iron Bank fleets embargoing Lannisport.
To yon side.
The realm unknits faster than a Septa's stockings. He penned coded ravens, one for Doran Martell, one for Mace Tyrell, one for Daenerys across sea. Each promised coin, harbor, alliance, anything to smother Wildfire with reason. Pod watched Quill scratch. If King Joffrey reads, he reads naught but his own legend. Tyrion sealed parchments. Yet legends burn bright, then ash. Daenerys' fleet sighted the arbor's lights on horizon glow when a scout skiff hailed them bearing Tyrell banners. The messenger knelt upon deck, offering cask of summer wine and a scroll of gold leaf. Dany read the entreaty. Mace Tyrell requesting audience, promising bread and roses in exchange for temperate dawn following lion's night. She looked to her dragon's circling mast. Westeros invites.
Ser barristan coucelet caution, ser jora suspicion.
Daenerys stroked Regal's snout. A rose may bear thorns, but thorns cannot pierce dragonhide. She ordered course for the arbor. In King's Landing, plague of fog settled so thick sailors swore ghosts perched on prow. Qyburn used the gloom, ferrying carts of vials from Guildhall to dungeons. Franken brewed glaze to coat Strong's sword, a resin that burned green on flesh. They tested on condemned thieves. The blade's shallow kiss left wounds smoking, maggots writhing before death's mercy. Joffrey watched one trial from litter, stump aching inside golden boot false cover. When the thief fell charred, he smiled. When dragons fly, he whispered, let them taste their mother's breath. Stormfather howled when Arya and Sansa reached Maidenpool disguised as swineherd boys. Refugees flooded gates, fleeing famine, plague rumor, lion purge. They bartered a silver brooch, gift from Marjorie smuggled in cloak, for passage aboard salt trawler bound up coast. Sansa hugged Arya, tears dried to salt crust. We go home, she said. Arya nodded, yet her gaze drifted south where fires still glow. Not all, she murmured, but she clasped her sister's hand and boarded. On deck she unfurled Tywin's dagger, studied black glass steel. She sheathed it again, whispering new name, Tywin Lannister. Within red keep's sept, Cersei knelt before marble mother, beads slipping through fingers. She prayed for son's healing, for lions' roar to drown vipers that hissed behind curtains. But prayer could not numb dread. Joffrey's mind slid deeper into abyss each dawn. She rose, donned amber gown, and stepped into council hall where Lady Olenna waited with tea. We speak, Olenna said, or we bleed. Cersei's jaw clenched. Olenna poured 2 cups, added honey. The king's pain poisons realm. Cut out pain, heal body. He is my son. He is infection. Olenna sipped. Gardens yield naught when roots rot. Cersei's voice trembled. You suggest treason. I suggest pruning. Olenna's gaze sharpened. Before dragons do it for us. Cersei stared into amber depths. Poison or tea? Hard to know. She drank. That night Cersei found Joffrey alone, whispering to Ned Stark's skull. He says winter devours fools, Joffrey told her, eyes shining fever. But fire melts winter. I will melt them all. Tears broke Cersei's resolve. She kissed his brow, scalding. Sleep, my sweet. She poured duskshade into cup, heavier than Franken warned. He drank gladly. As lids drooped, she smoothed hair, singing lullaby from Lannisport shores. He slept. Dreams devoured him. Rivers of emerald, wolves howling green flame, dragons screaming overhead. He ran on leg that wasn't there, stumbled, fell into pyre where father's crown floated molten. He reached but arms blistered. A wolf leapt through fire, teeth closing on his throat. Joffrey jolted awake, choking. Moon carved window bars over bed. Breath ragged, he groped for Cain. Shadows shifted, one detached dagger glittering. Sansa? No, the shape moved like smoke. Varys stepped into Moonlance. Your grace. Joffrey blinked, haunched. Spider. What? I spin truths. Varys's voice velvet. Tonight I weave mercy. He uncorked vial, poured silver drop onto tongue. A gentler sleep, he assured. Joffrey recoiled. Robert Strong burst through door, sword raised. Varys sighed. Too late. Strong advanced. Varys tossed vial. Glass shattered on knight's helm. Liquid hissing alight, green. Flame crawled visor, yet Strong did not falter. He swung. Varys ducked, robes aflare, and fled. Sword cleaved bedpost, sparks showering. Joffrey screamed for guards. Strong pursued Spider into corridor where purple blaze trailed. Hallway erupted into chaos. The king crawled from bed, stump dragging.
Bells rang.
Qyburn rushed in, dousing sheets. Your grace come. Flames climbed drapes. Smoke choked. They escaped down servant passage as maids shrieked. Strong stalked Hall's hunting Spider twitching with fire. Joffrey collapsed in library antechamber, breath heaving. "Mother!" he gasped. She stumbled in, hair loose, eyes wild. "I tried," she sobbed, blood on lips. She slid to floor, convulsed. Olenna's tea had not been tea. Cersei clutched his burnt cheek once more, then stilled. Silence. Joffrey's cry echoed into vaulted dark. Morning found the red keep scarred by yet another fire. Library half-blackened. Queen Mother dead of heart burst. So maesters claimed. The spider vanished. Some said Strong slew him, others that he melted into tunnels. Joffrey ordered heads on spikes but received none. He crowned himself anew that evening, iron circlet reforged to hide stump ear beneath crimson glass ear fashioned by Qyburn. He rode wheeled throne into throne room, legless yet towering upon dais' height.
Lannister lords bent nie, Tyrells hesitated.
Tywin absent, campaigning. Joffrey's voice cut air raw. Treason grows beneath skirts. Weed it. He named Qyburn Hand of the King.
Gesps met de kree.
Pycelle fainted. Qyburn smiled thin. Encamped beneath Golden Tooth, Tywin felt Raven's talons dig fist. News of Cersei's death, Qyburn's rise, capital fires. He read note thrice, then burned it. Robb Stark approached, parley decided. Tywin forged expression calm. The young wolf dismounted, eyes red, as if doom shadowed both camps. "We march tomorrow," Robb said, "north, in exchange for sister's safe deliverance." Tywin inclined head. Agreed. They clasped forearms. In that grip winters clashed with autumn fields. But as Robb turned, Bolton banners stirred within Stark ranks, flayed men bleeding red on pink field. Tywin's eyes narrowed, Bolton not content with pact. Night came fierce. In Stark camp, knives slipped into ale, bolts flew, wolves died. Bolton's steel carved betrayal. Fry horns blew. The red wedding played anew beneath open sky. Lion's wedding. Tywin watched from ridge, guessing outcome yet unmoved, for war rarely spared innocence. By dawn Robb lay on bier, arrow through lung, but breathing still. Brienne hacked path through traitors, bore king to Tywin's lines. Bolton withdrew snarling. Freys fled. Tywin ordered Maester to tend Robb. "A prisoner with pulse is bargaining chip," he said. A cry rose, a direwolf's howl ragged with rage. Grey wine charging through chaos until volley dropped him. Robb's eyes closed at sound. War shifted again. Marjorie stood before smoldering sept, ashes of Cersei's bier cooling. She placed single rose, petals pale as winter moon. Within keep, Qyburn's coronation feast reeked of burnt pork and spoiled wine. None sang. She turned to Ser Loras. "Ready the fleet." "For what port?" "Any with wind away from Wildfire." She looked skyward where ravens wheeled. "We sow our seeds elsewhere." Loras's jaw clenched. "And the king? If lions burn their den," she whispered, tears unshed. "Roses take root beyond flaw." "Me." Tyrion's sloop docked at Sunspear, greeted by Prince Doran's litter. Within shaded solar, wine flowed. Doran listened, eyes unreadable, as the dwarf detailed capitals fall into madness. When offered alliance, Doran tapped Cain. "Fire and blood returns." Dorne remembers. "Dorne also remembers ashes," Tyrion replied. Doran smiled faintly. "We choose sons over pyres." He sealed pact. Dornish spears for Dragon Queen, Martell claim to council seat. Ravens flew. Daenerys met Mace Tyrell in Arbor's vine-hung hall. The Lord bloomed wine rosy, promised ships, grain, gold. Anything for deliverance from lion fire. Dany listened, dragons coiled on terrace pillars. She tasted promise and peril alike. "I accept grain," she said. "But ships I take, not borrow." Mace gulped. "Take. I feed a realm you starved." Her eyes burned violet. "Your rose serves or withers." He knelt, petals wilting. Snow flurried on King's Road when Arya and Sansa approached Moat Cailin ruins. North wind hummed wolves' dirge. Refugees from south spoke of dragon sails, Dornish armies, lion storms. The sisters crossed neck marshes on raft guided by crannogmen, safe among reeds. At Greywater Watch, Howland Reed greeted Ned's daughters with tears. He pledged garrison to restore Winterfell. Sansa touched moss-covered stone. "Home," she breathed. Arya stared southward. "Not yet." She kissed Sansa's brow, mounted lean marsh pony. "Tell Jon I remember." Sansa clutched dagger. Arya pressed into palm. "Stay. I have more names." Arya's smile was ghost. She rode into mist, leaving wolf tracks to mingle with reed. Inside the Red Keep, Joffrey summoned council, now Qyburn, Franken, Pycelle Silent Spectre, Ser Balon strong. "Enemies circle," he rasped. "We answer with fire." Qyburn unfurled parchment. Plans for great trebuchets fitted to hurl casks thrice sized before. "Dragon's breath," he called them, glazed to shatter mid-air scattering fume. "One volley may boil a fleet." Joffrey's grin twisted scar. "Forge them." Franken presented vial blue-black. "Bone fire," he named, essence of basilisk and wildfire. Contact rotted flesh in breaths. Joffrey ordered arrowheads dipped. Pycelle tried caution. Joffrey silenced with nod. Strong's fist crushed Maester's collarbone. Bones punctured lung. Pycelle died gurgling. The throne room stank of piss. Thus did terror deepen. From Dragonstone, Stannis watched smoke over capital and cursed missed fate. Melisandre prayed in chamber, saw portents shift to queens and wolves. "Lollarest's path leads elsewhere," she said. "Then walk it alone," Stannis growled. But Davos urged alliance. "Fire that spares none leaves naught to rule." He wrote to Daenerys, sealed with onion sigil. Daenerys's flotilla, arbor loaned and commandeered, sailed up Gullet, dragons overhead trailing shadows on wine-dark sea. Orphans of war lined cliffs, cheering as black and red sails passed. On deck, Dany donned burnished breastplate, hair braided with dragonbone beads. She turned to her captains. Dornish, Reachmen, Stormlanders who had sworn in secret messages. "Tonight we anchor by Dragonstone," she said. "Tomorrow, Blackwater." Grey Worm nodded. Unsullied ready, Ser Jorah placed fist over heart. Westeros beckons its queen. Dany gazed toward faint green glow beyond headland. "No," she whispered. "It cries." In King's Landing, fog parted at sunset to reveal horizons stitched with sails. Bells rang warning. Joffrey wheeled to balcony, stump throbbing. Beyond bay, dragons corkscrewed sky, black-red wings lighting clouds. Wind carried roar like worlds colliding. His laughter cracked blood scabs. "Let them come." Trebuchets groaned as crews loaded green casks twice man's girth. Streets cleared, small folk fled cellars already ablaze. Qyburn readied bonefire vats along walls. Strong stood statue still beside King, sword flaming green along edge. Night fell. Across water, Daenerys soared atop Drogon, moonlight silvering scale. She drew spear tipped Valyrian steel, gift from Dorne, lifted high. Fleets formed crescent, catapults primed with smoke pots. Below, Tyrion guided Dornish skiffs toward sewer outfall. Barrels of wildfire stolen by Varys now set to flood tied back into city's own tunnels. One spark could invert hell. Within Red Keep, Marjorie knelt before Olenna, tears glimmering. "We sail now?" she asked. "Now," Olenna said, "where roses grow from ash." South gates opened. Tyrell retinue slipped away in fog, carts laden with grain for starving riverlands. Loras stayed, hand on sword. Beyond the neck, Robb's litter rolled north under truce guard. Inside he grappled fever. Maester Needles sewed arrow wound. Each prick felt like home slipping farther. Bolton riders shadowed edges, plotting second betrayal. And Arya? She galloped down King's Road astride borrowed horse, cloak flapping, eyes fixed on green glow ahead. She would arrive by dawn, name burning her tongue. Names burned everywhere. Midnight, silence, heavy. Daenerys hovered on Drogon's back above bay entrance. She raised spear. Unsullied warhorn bellowed. Fleet advanced. On parapets, Joffrey clenched rail, spite and dread coiling. "Loose!" he screamed. Trebuchets released. Emerald comets arced, caught moonlight. Drogon banked. Daenerys whispered, "Dracarys." Flame white-hot met jade fusillade midair. Explosion tore sky, showering bay with burning rain. Ships burst bloom after bloom. Water churned boiling. Yet Drogon dove through fire, wings tipped molten. Behind him, Regal and Viserion streaked vengeance. Casks on walls ignited prematurely from dragon breath. Bonefire jars shattered. Green-blue blaze raced battlements, devouring archers' screams. Within tunnels, Tyrion's torches lit river of stolen wildfire surging toward vault caches. He fled just before spark kissed tide. The ground convulsed. Fountains of flame erupted manholes. Streets split like new mouths of hell. In throne room, quake toppled Ned's skull. It cracked, jaw clattering down steps. Joffrey watched, horror eclipsing rage. Roof above shattered in gout of flame. Drogon's talons punched through rafters. Wood splintered. Chandeliers fell. The throne melted at edges like wax. Robert Strong leapt, sword ablaze, striking at Dragon Claw. Steel bounced. Dragon fire flooded hall. Strong's armor glowed red then white. Within helm, Gregor's corpse baked, yet still swung until limbs failed molten. Joffrey wheeled, rolling chair toward side door. But heat waves slammed him, flesh blistering anew. He shrieked. His crown melted, fusing to skull. Will rims caught flame. Chair toppled. Qyburn tried drag him free. A beam crushed alchemist, vials shattering acid hiss. Fire danced. Outside, city became cauldron. Arya galloped through gates blown apart, smoke columns towering. She dismounted, sprinted rubble alleys toward Red Keep. Sparks kissed hair. She dodged falling beams, lungs seared, but she found Throne Hall's side breach. Inside, Inferno roared. She saw Joffrey crawling, legless, crown fused, face melting worse than Night of Balcony. Flames hemmed him. He clawed carbon floor. Arya stepped through smoke, dagger drawn. He saw her, good eye glazed, and laughed a sound like tearing paper. "Wolf," he croaked. "At last." She knelt, blade cool against fiery glare. No triumph, only release. "Vala Morgulis," she whispered, sliding steel under jaw, through melted flesh, into brain. He spasmed, stilled. Flames closed. She fled, coughing, dagger glowing red. Above, Drogon roared victory. City burned but would rise anew, forged under Dragon Queen. Dawn broke smoky rose over ruins. Survivors staggered ash-whitened streets. Unsullied lines formed water chains. Dornish healers tended singed small folk. Tyrell bread wagons rolled gates open, scattering loaves. Daenerys stood on parapet of shattered gatehouse, looking over Blackwater's steam. Tyrion limped to her side, soot-streaked. "King is dead," he said. "Long live Queen," Ser Jorah added. She nodded, gaze solemn. "We rebuild." Smoke parted. Snowflakes drifted, first of winter. They melted on dragon scales, hissed. Far north, Jon Snow stood atop rebuilt battlement of Winterfell, feeling cold carry distant roar. He closed eyes, whispered to wind. Wolves howled answer. War had ended, wars began. And in charred throne room, melted swords congealed into weird new shape, a totem of hubris. Fire King's roar faded forever, leaving realm to those who dared mend from ash.